Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Run. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, and it's going to be about parties. Question of the day. Or the party is survivable. Welcome aboard Bruce Pollard, and welcome aboard Deborah Keith. And I saw Deborah, Keith Man from Arizona. Please, folks, if you're listening, if you're just tuning in, I have one request. The first request that I always ask my listeners is the first thing I'd ask you to do, share the show. It's imperative that we share the show immediately so that our Facebook algorithms will pick it up and start sharing it along the line and make sure it doesn't die what's known as the Facebook thread death. So go ahead and share the program. Please make sure to remember this is a call-in show. Telephone number 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I see a lot of people just coming in again. Please, folks, if you're just coming in, share the show. We're going to be talking about party politics. Are parties dead? We don't know, but we have a lot of talk about that. Again, please go ahead and share the show. The show is at 646-716-5812 if you want to call in. Anyhow, it's a strange day, isn't it? It's a real strange day, and it seems like we have an unhinged president. Look, I've seen it all. I've been in this country since 1979. Yeah, folks, some of you can't believe. Yes, I am that old. I've been in this house, in this country, since 1979. Through good presidents, bad presidents, marginal presidents. I don't understand what is happening with the current person we call President of the United States. The rest of the world is confused about who we are. They thought a whole lot more of us. They really thought as a country we were a very intelligent people who were the leaders of the world, the people that they look up to, and now they have to look at us with a president who goes on Twitter and use words like, oh, he's stupid, he's funny, he's an idiot, presidents don't speak this way. Presidents do not speak this way. Hi, Milton Gibson. Hi, Beatrice Mull. And if anybody that I miss, I'm so sorry, but I'll catch you when I get to the pad. Folks, we are in a different space, and don't let any pundit fool you. None of us understand where we are, because never in the history of the United States, I don't think never in the history of a country of this stature, could we have expected to have a president like we have. And to think that there are a lot of intelligent Republicans and intelligent Democrats who are not as hard on this president as they should be, who are not excoriating this president day in and day out, not with politically correct statements, but with accurate words that describe who he is, a dumb, uneducated, immature, a mentally stable child. I mean, until folks start explaining to the country who this guy really is, they give him the semblance of him being a president. He was elected by the electoral college to be president, but he is not of presidential material, and that has nothing to do with my point of view being a super liberal or extremely left-wing progressive. That has nothing to do with that. In as much as I was not on the same wavelength with Brother Bush, and I thought Brother Bush was pretty not very intelligent himself, I respected Brother Bush. The same applies to, of course, with Obama, one of our most intelligent presidents to serve to date. Carter, intelligent president to serve to date. Bush, number one, Daddy Bush. I actually respected Daddy Bush quite a bit as not only being intelligent, but being effective. Okay? Reagan, well, Reagan was another Trump who knew how to act. So that's the difference between Ronald Reagan and Trump. And, people say, oh, well, look at how much Reagan accomplished. No, Reagan didn't accomplish much. Reagan was a good actor, and people like good actors, whether they're smart or dumb. He was a good actor, and he played the part well. Not only did he play the part well, I mean, even in his old age, at the end of his presidency, when he was legitimately senile and under the influence of what's the disease? Whatever the disease was that he had of the mind, he still looked effective. Why? Because he was very well managed. So don't sit back and think, oh, because the person looks this way, that somehow they are really an effective president or really they know what they're doing. Reagan had a good staff around him, and this good staff around Reagan made him look very well. Hi, Elena Watson. Welcome aboard. So, folks, we're going to have a good show for you today. Again, for those that are coming in, the first thing that I'll ask you to do is please share the show. It is imperative that you share the show so that we can get the Facebook penetration, so that we can get onto the other sequences, and Facebook knows to throttle our show to have enough people see this progressive program. Now, please also remember, folks, that this is a progressive show that does need your support. So I ask you to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. We do this out of duty, but still we need to have the show supported. We really need to have several hundred supporters over time to make the show viable for the long run. We do a whole lot. As you know, we were in Washington, D.C. last week covering the marches. You know that we go out there in the field with Indivisible. We go out there in the field with Swing Left. We go out there in the field. Wherever there are things happening, we make sure to have a presence. We make sure to write about it. We make sure to give you the right tonality about it. We make sure also to get around a lot of the scam that occurs on TV. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things on TV that cannot be told because these TV stations must have their advertising. So will they talk about Clarinex versus Claritin being, there was no reason to have the drug Clarinex versus Claritin. They can't say that because Clarinex became the next cash cow of the pharmaceutical companies. So we have to know that only independent media is going to really analyze. Only independent media is going to tell you the things that they won't. I mean, these are not bad people at all. I'm not going to be like Trump who just come and excoriate these folks. These folks have a job to do, and because the model that we have right now is an advertising model, a proactive advertising model, many times they don't have the choice. So I ask you to support Politics Done Right. I don't ask this in jest, or I don't ask this without also being a participant. I always tell folks out here, look, just as I'm asking folks to support Politics Done Right at patreon.com/politicsdoneright, I support Daily Coast. I support Coffee Party USA. I support Op-Ed News. I support the Democratic Underground. I support HCDP. I support several other, and this is small support for all these different institutions. I ask you to do the same, and I just ask you to make Politics Done Right be one of those on your list. So you can either look on the screen to see that the address we're at. Above this program as well, there is a link directly to our patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please go ahead. It's just a coffee. Give Politics Done Right a coffee. We would be much obliged, and we will continue to bring you unadulterated facts, truth, and we'll try to also open up the truth. Folks, this is a call-in show as well. After the blog of the week, I ask you to do this, to go ahead and be brave. Give us a call. We're pretty nice out here and want to talk to you. And remembering that this is your show. I always try to remind folks that this is your show. Therefore, I can have a topic, and there are times people call in and they turn the topic around because it's your show. That's what we do. You can call in and ask anything. You can call in and say anything, as long as you're not using a whole lot of profanities that shouldn't be out there. But you can call in and challenge me. One of the best parts of doing this is when one is challenged. I love to be challenged. And why? Because it sharpens me. It sharpens us. If I'm challenged, I mean, there are times that I will come out wrong. There are times that I will come out right. But in the aggregate, both of us being challenged forcefully make sure that our product, what is our product? Prosperity for the entire country, the wellness of the entire country. If we hammer things out, we make things better for everybody. Anyway, what is the show going to be about today? Today, the show is going to be, it's titled, Democratic Party and Republican Party are dead political parties walking. Are they? And it continues, Americans are realigning while the political parties are merging. I know Democrats and Republicans won't want to hear that, but we will kind of show you that. Anyhow, there is a realignment of the American population that will ultimately leave the American duopoly in shambles. What's a duopoly? The Republican and Democratic Party. The Green Party and the Green Party and all these other parties, they are going to say, well, what about us? Well, this country is still controlled by two parties. The Green Party, the Justice Party, and all these other parties are great to have. They're great. And I don't want to call them distractions because that would be disrespectful. But to some, that is what they are, distractions. To some, what they've done is that they have allowed the possibility of a Trump. There's a lot of arguments to be made in either case. There are arguments to be made where we'll take that on some other time. Anyhow, the question one must ask is, what will the politics look like when all the false externalities are exposed? That will ultimately signify the fusion of the Barrios, the Ghettos, and Appalachia. Reverend Barber refers to this as fusion politics, the politics of everything, the politics of us all, irrespective of party, which is a day that I dream of. For those of you who've been following this show for some time, you know that I speak to Republicans, Democrats, Justice Party, Green Party, Tea Party. I speak to everybody with respect. I hit everybody hard with respect because I think the only way we're going to move forward as a society is for us to treat each other with respect, disregarding the differences that we may have or whatever differences we may have. If we can learn to do that, we can ultimately come out with the right kinds of solutions. Now, notice that I said forceful dialogue, forceful and no holds barred, no hold back in what you believe in until proven otherwise. And the same applies to me. I have certain strong beliefs, but I've been known to change them when somebody have proved that I was wrong on issues. And I can tell you there are many issues that ultimately I was wrong at, and I've come right here on air and said, hey, you know what? Position change, there's no shame in changing positions. Anyway, Matt Taibbi has an interesting article referencing some work done by Thomas Piketty that we will explore. I don't know if you guys remember that Piketty. He's a guy who kind of did a big piece on income inequality and wealth disparity and capitalism and all that sort of stuff. I'd never read the book. I just read excerpts of the book and analyses of the book, but it's a huge book and I really didn't have the time to do so. Anyhow, from the news feed, there goes our crazy president again. Washington Post from Reuters through Huffington Post. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said he planned to use U.S. military forces to protect the nation's southern border with Mexico until there is a border wall and proper security. We are going to be doing this militarily, Trump told reporters at the White House, adding that he had discussed the idea with U.S. Defense Secretary John Mattis. Now, folks, the immigration, rather, the crossing of the border has been so reduced that is hogwash. That is just a waste of money that is occurring. This isn't like when George Bush or Barack Obama had to send the military there, when there was really an influx of folks and it actually got dangerous down there on the border. The border is pretty darn peaceful right now. People are not even coming into the country as usual. Donald Trump was allowed Fox News to use a ruse to get him all hyped up. And I don't think it was necessarily a ruse. I think it was a well-coordinated, it was a well-orchestrated plan in which Donald Trump and the Fox News folks probably saw all these supposedly cars coming from Central America into Mexico to proceed into the United States. And they used that as an excuse for having to somehow protect the border. Man, do you know how long our border is with Mexico? I mean, the truth of the matter is that isn't what's going to do it at all. I mean, if anybody wants to control immigration, it is simple. You know, it does not start with the supply. Supply side, everything never works. Supply side economics is a failure. Supply side immigration is a failure. People come to the United States because ultimately when they get here, somebody is going to employ them. They will get a benefit somehow because they're running. Everybody runs for what's best for them, and that is exactly what these guys are doing. And look, I'm a foreigner who came here legally and got my papers, got my green card, and proceeded to get my citizenship. I came to the United States because the United States was the place that I could excel, the place that I could perform, the place that I could do what I did. Get a great education, work for good American companies, and after that form my own company, successful for a very long time, and then decided, you know what, I had to give back and come into political activism. Let me just give you a little warning, folks. Political activism, there ain't no money. It's very, very hard. It's extremely hard to survive on doing political activism. But if you have kids, if you believe in people and believe that this country has to go somewhere, somebody got to do it, and you can't keep saying he's going to do it, she's going to do it. Eventually, sometime, you're going to have to do it. And that's why one of the reasons I always say, look, support progressive politics, support progressive media, because we're the ones that are going to tell you the truth and make things better for everybody. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Help keep the message on the air. Anyhow, so the border is really already secured. Don't let anybody fool you. There are not a lot of people coming over here or trying to make it to the United States anymore. Some because they're scared to death of this crazy man that we have running the country. But secondly, because, people come over here when wherever they are, they're in a period of stress. And Central America is not as stressful as it was during the early years of President Obama or George Bush or at other times. So they're not coming in the forces that they came before. But again, if one wants to solve the immigration problem, all you have to do is go to the plutocracy, the people who own the capitalist companies, the people who own the meat packing plants, the people who own all these other places. If they were forced to follow the law and only hire people who have the papers to work in this country, there wouldn't be work available for those people who are coming in undocumentedly. And in that regards, then they would stop coming. But the issue is they're really coming because the people who run the plutocracy wants to hire them to undercut the American workers. So when you hear some American workers that a lot of us like to call, those xenophobic racists, yes, some of them are. But there's some reality to those who would say that, in fact, even not Hugo Chavez, but Cesar Chavez, if I'm not mistaken, I just learned this, believe it or not, recently, was an anti-immigrant to some extent. Now, and the reason why I am not, I'm for free open borders. I think the country is well for controlled open borders, and that's another subject. But anyhow, if we went to the plutocracy, to those businessmen who are hiring these people that are undocumented, then they would stop coming because there would be nothing for them to do here. But you see, The American government never touches the plutocracy. They never touch the wealthy folks who are taking advantage of these people, who are taking advantage of us all, to put it bluntly. They don't really hit the problems. And what Americans need to learn up front, the everyday American, what you need to learn up front, it is not that immigrant that is screwing with your pay. It's not that immigrant that is stopping you from getting a job. It is not that immigrant that is lowering your wages. It is always your employer. It is always your employer not wanting you to unionize. It is always your employer not wanting that is willing to pay an undocumented person because they know they don't have to pay that undocumented person Social Security, or even if they do, they can pay a lower wage, a lower Social Security, and not worry about anything, because after all, that undocumented person will never collect that Social Security. And for those people who are getting Social Security, who themselves are xenophobes, remember there are a lot of foreigners working here without papers that are paying Social Security and will never be able to use Social Security. So those same foreigners that we want to get rid of are actually propping up our Social Security system because we're taking advantage of them. So there are a lot of that to that issue. So moving on to the next subject, Huffington Post. I am so happy about this one. Thousands of Oklahoma teachers descended onto the state capitol in Oklahoma for the second straight day. Tuesday demanded that legislature restore school funding after years of deep cuts and stagnating salaries. Most school districts around the state remained closed for the day, while many went ahead and announced they would remain closed for at least the rest of the week. And I'm not going to read any more of that because I don't want to take up too much time on that. But here's what I'm happy about. And this is what I'm going to write. I'm writing this for Daily Coast for Sunday because I divided it into three pieces: a moral piece, an economic piece, and I don't remember what's the other top piece that I called it. But when you think about the teachers, you know, we had the fight for 15. That was the other piece, the fight for 15. I was very happy with the fight for 15, but somehow a lot of people didn't coalesce to the fight for 15, because most people, or a large percentage of people, are not in that fight for 15. They're not the fast food workers, etc., etc., etc. So a lot of people weren't really engaged in that. But teachers, everybody knows a teacher. Every single person knows the teacher has a certain degree of respectability. Well, I tell you where I come from, they had an aura of respectability. Here in the United States, teachers don't get the due that they deserve. You know, I think teachers are likely the most important profession in this country, bar none. I mean, more so important than engineers. And you know, I'm an engineer, and I'm saying I think a teacher is more important than engineers, more important than lawyers, doctors, more important than all these people, because they are the ones who are going to create the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, and everybody else. Yet, all of us that I just mentioned thus far make much more than teachers make. There's something wrong. You know, we're supposed to be a capitalist country, and a capitalist country says the efficient allocation of resources, and not only the efficient allocation of resources, but based on your worth to society. Somehow, brokers ended up at the top of that list. Bankers ended up at the top of that list. And somehow they're the ones that do the least, the very least for society, as they produce absolutely nothing than moving a bit of paper. My garbage man is more important to me than my banker. The guy who sweeps the floor in front of here is more important than my stockbroker. Think about that. Somehow we don't allocate our resources appropriately, even as we say we're a capitalist country, and that by definition is what capitalism does. False. It's just a sales job. It's just a sales job. So anyhow, I'm happy to see those teachers out there fighting, because what happens is this. I am expecting, and guess what? These fights are occurring in red states. We know why, right? Why is it occurring in red states? Because red states, from Texas to Oklahoma to Kansas, specifically Kansas with their crazy Governor Brownback, slashed education and cut taxes, so give all the wealthy people a lot of money, take it away from the kids who need their education, who needs their education to keep the state itself educated so that companies would come in knowing that it has an educated populace. But no, they cut the budget. Brownback cuts the budget in Kansas. And Texas cuts its school budget while they're giving giveaways to corporations. And that sounds like a cliche, folks, but it's not a cliche. This is really not a cliche. These red states are cutting taxes on all those who can best afford to pay these taxes, and they're cutting it from services, from tuition to college, from supporter colleges, from high schools. All these are getting cuts, and the teachers are getting cut. Here in Houston, we have a $200 million deficit, and they're going to be slashing and burning teachers, cleaning rooms every other day or once a week or something like that. Look, that is what they do, right? They cut. And the teacher, and I've always wondered, because my kid is now in med school. My kid is now out of the high school system, etc. My question then is, why is it taking so long, not only for the teachers to revolt, but the parents cannot be that selfish that they can't see that saving $100 a year off of their property taxes don't allow their kids a much better education and the teachers a great salary, so that the teachers feel invested in those kids and not have to worry about, well, when I get off, when I'm done teaching the kids, I got to run and do my Uber driving. And when I'm done with my Uber driving, I have to run and work in the restaurant. And when I'm done working in the restaurant, and by the way, I also have a family. Where is the morality? Where is the morality in that? And that is what these moral states are doing. The red states are doing. Cutting the school budgets to the bones to give it away to rich millionaires, because those are the ones that are going to benefit from these tax cuts that we're talking about of any consequence. The average person going to have $100 or so more off of their. In the case of Texas, real estate taxes is what's used to pay for education. Folks, why aren't you rebelling? Why aren't you in the streets? For those of you who have kids in elementary school, in middle school, and high school, why aren't you voting every single one of your state politicians out of office? Every single one of your state politicians who supported cutting the education budget. Let me tell you what they did here in Texas. They actually, and this takes some balls, folks. They go ahead and they say, we are cutting taxes in Texas, all right? So our state legislature, they cut taxes in the state legislature to give it back away, these taxes. But at the same time, they said, the way you are going to recover the taxes that we were able to advertise as your state legislature has cut taxes, is they're forcing the local governments to increase taxes to pay for the taxes they cut. So we have these state reps coming out and saying, when we were in Austin, Texas, we cut taxes. And right there in black and white, and another Republican actually exposed them for doing this. They went ahead and then said, oh my God, you have to raise taxes on the local side, if you want your monies. Think about that. The hypocrisy, the immorality, and the average American parent who has kids in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, they're just taking it. Here's my contention. My contention is, yes, they're taking it. They're likely taking it because they don't know. Well, guess what? Here's politics done right, folks. Share politics done right to your friends. And let them know this is what's happening in Texas, and not only in Texas, but just about every red state. Let them know this is what's happening, and not only the teachers should be on the streets. The parents should be on the street saying, these are the people in charge of my most precious commodity is controlled by these people for 4 to 8 hours a day. I pay taxes. I am not going to allow the state to put my kids at jeopardy. And that is what's happening right now, folks. That is what's happening. Your kids are at jeopardy because you indirectly have allowed your corrupt, immoral state representative to go out there, cut taxes, and screw your kids. folks, look, you get your local news every day, right? You get your national news every day. How many of them, ad nauseum as we talk education, are informing the average American citizen of this to let them know why they've got to be on the streets as well? They've got to let these politicians know we're coming for you. In fact, though, I've just told you this, November is coming. November is coming. Share this. Share this with your friends. Tell them about this story. Tell them the education story. But there are a lot more than education stories to tell. There's a hell of a lot more education stories to tell. But it's important that people know that. Because, again, all they're talking about right now in news, Stormy Daniel, Russia, Pruitt has just done another screwy thing. And anyway, I think I'm supposed to talk about that as well. Because Pruitt, above just not protecting our water supply anymore, above not keeping regulations on water, above paying his staff, paying his staff an extra stipend, even though the White House said, no, you could not increase the salary of your staff, he did it anyway using a loophole. Even cutting the Superfund sites, even flying first class all the time. He still has a job, and he still has the confidence of the President of the United States. And the President of the United States, our biggest liar, the biggest liar in the country, the absolute biggest liar in the country, came out and attacked Amazon. Look, Amazon is Amazon is the biggest capitalist company in this country, and I buy a lot from Amazon myself. I wish Amazon would be split into several pieces. I think it hurts I think it hurts business, but again, that is a political issue that can be handled with political discourse. Because remember, corporations are a corporation has its own identity, right? So when we talk about splitting a company, it's not like, oh, we're taking the rights away from a person or something like that. A corporation is its own legal entity. So we can decide how to handle that legal entity, and we can decide as a country that for the sake of not capitalism, because I'm for free enterprise, not capitalism. For the sake of free enterprise, we want to make sure that companies don't grow so large that they stifle out the possibility of others that could do things better but don't have the wherewithal, because these guys have all the gravity. They could do things better. So, but right now, Amazon is following all the laws. Amazon is a good employer, doesn't pay their people good enough because some of them themselves are still on welfare, but it pays better than a whole lot of the other folks that make up the plutocracy. One lying president goes after the company. Why? Because Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, which has been doing some I hit the media up very hard. I rarely hit the Post investigative teams up, because much of what I learn, aside from the odd publications that nobody else covers, but a lot of what I learned come from the investigative reports at both the New York Times and more so the Washington Post. The New York Times have some problems. I always had some problems with them since the Iraq War. But anyhow, so it is important for to know why he's attacking Bezos, because he owns the Washington Post. He also attacks Bezos because Bezos is the richest person in the world, given the valuation. So he brings the company down by lying. One, he says they don't pay sales taxes. Not true. Every state that collects sales taxes, Amazon collects sales taxes. You buy from Amazon. Americans don't have to worry if it's fake news or not. If you buy from Amazon and you pay state taxes in your state, you know that when you get your Amazon bill, it also includes the state taxes. So don't take the president at his words ever. Our president is a liar. Secondly, he said that somehow they're getting a sweetheart deal from the post office. Anybody who ships in bulk gets a sweetheart deal from the post office. And one of the reasons they get a sweetheart deal, in fact, in the early days of my company, Willie's Computer Software Company, when I sent out a whole lot of, whenever I was sending out either big mailers or whenever I sent it out my software, in those days, it wasn't online. Those days you had these books that you wrote and you sent that went with your software. I would get preferential rates. Why? Because I sent bulk. And how do you do bulk? You take care of all the sorting. You take care of arranging things by zip code. You do all the work that a normal postal employee would have been doing. And in doing so, you get a reduced rate because all that sorting is done by whom? By you. So it's no sweetheart deal here. You go to an Amazon center, you will see the postal trucks out there, not filled in by the postal worker. You'll see the trailers are there, and those trailers are packed by a certain formula to ensure that those things are delivered fast, to ensure that those things are delivered. For those people who are just coming to the show, please remember to share the show as you listen. Even if you're going to stay 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or the whole hour, please go ahead and share this show on your Facebook page. Very important. Okay, so those are the stories that I wanted to cover, and I went kind of long-winded today, but there was so much to cover, and a lot of, and we can handle the Democratic Republican thing in 10 minutes or so, and then I'll go to you guys and get whatever it is that you have to say. But I think the premise of the show is important, and all of what I've spoken before, indirectly one could show that falls into the premise of the show. But folks, guess what? As late as we are,
it's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, and caller at 213, I'll be coming to you in a second. Let me just say, most of this blog of the week today is an excerpt from Matt Taibbi's piece. But here it goes. Matt Taibbi deconstructed a study by Thomas Piketty that compared several countries' voting patterns. What it shows is an electorate that is extremely polarized. Fortunate for the plutocracy, the polarization has not yet materialized on fact-based economic realities. I'll explain that in a little bit. But the day of reckoning cannot be too far away. And what Piketty actually showed is he showed that except for a few elections, we don't have landslides anymore. We have elections between 2 to 5 points, 2 to 6 points, or something like that. Which means, if that's the case, things look pretty darn even, and there's not much difference. And it pretends something that is dangerous. It pretends the equality in philosophy of the parties in many areas. And he showed that based on who supports what party. Like, you might ask your question, why would most of Appalachia support Republicans? If the Republican ideology is really about complete self-sufficiency, little government, etc., 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 that doesn't make natural sense. So we'll discuss that some. But anyhow, this is what he said. Is the name of the thing that he had is called, piece he had is the two-party system doomed? And after he explained some of what I just mentioned, this is a segment that I thought everybody needed to hear. This is, I think, is the most important segment of the entire piece. It's a pretty long piece, and I have a link to it in the blog of the week, but it's the most important part of the piece. And here it says, the numbers are getting harder to ignore. American politicians for decades have done an outstanding job of keeping low-income voters from seeing their shared economic dilemmas. The Republicans, dated back to Goldwater and Nixon, have kept voters transfixed with race hatred and fears about things like gun control, while Democrats have emphasized the Republican threat on social issues like reproductive rights and Social Security. But having two parties sponsored by the same donors, and that's the magical stuff, baby. Having two parties sponsored by the same donors simply can't work in the long term. The situation ends up being what a Colombian politician once deemed two horses with the same owner. From Mitt Romney's idiotic tirade against the 47% to Hillary Clinton's recent remarks about how she won all the dynamic parts of America, our political leaders have consistently showed that they don't understand the levels of resentment out there. Papers like Piketty's are a warning, and here's the ending, are a warning. If the intellectuals in both parties don't come up with a real plan for dealing with the income disparity problem before someone smarter than Donald Trump takes it on, they're screwed. Forget nativists versus globalists. Think poor versus rich. think 99 to 1. While Washington waits with bated breath for the results of the Mueller probe, it's the other mystery. How do we fix this seemingly unfixable economic system that is keeping the rest of the country awake at night? Okay, why the destruction of the parties? Again, if you notice what Matt Taibbi said, and it's a very long piece that I just can't cover the entire piece here, but here's the essence. The two parties share the same, they have a great intersection of a donor base. The people who have the ears of these politicians are the same. So therefore, the ex-sons will give to both the Democrat and the Republican in many different forms. So you may look it up and it says ex-son give the Republican and somehow give a little bit to the Democrats, but somehow some agency associated with the ex-son would give to the Democrats. It's a game. It's a game that the only people who lose are us all. Everybody else, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever. One of the reasons I never get upset per se at the Republican individual, at the Tea Party individual, at the conservative individual, because I know there's a lot of money spent on brainwashing them. And by the way, the same applies to liberals as well. The liberals that will never look at certain things the Democratic Party does as wrong, they are just as well integrated to toe the line. The only difference is that the political philosophy of the parties are so different. One is very, very evil, and one is only marginally good. Notice what I said. Very, very evil to marginally good. Because the real good would be to eliminate the type of economic system that we have and establish a real free enterprise system. And by the way, given that my book cannot be I'm not going to tell you what my other book was going to be, but I'm going to tell you what this current book is that I'm sort of working on. Is going to be the creation, something to the effect of the creation of an economic system that works for all. And the idea is to make it not scary to folk, because a lot of times when you talk about having a real economic system that is working for everybody, the first thing the plutocracy does is they want to tag you with two lines, socialist or communist. First of all, I don't really care what the hell you call me. I just care about people and what is going to make people successful. All right, you know what I better do? So let me go ahead and read some of our commentary here from people, because I know I've probably left you a little bit too long. Forgive me. Sometimes I can get long-winded on these issues, so I ask your forgiveness. But it is important to, I tell you what, let me take, while I pull this up on the screen, let me take 213 and then I'll move on. I have a feeling this is brother, go ahead. Who do I have on 213?
Yes, you have the real brother.
I thought it.
Real brother.
I thought this was you, real brother.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Real brothers. There's only 10% of black people who embrace their black race and culture and reject this myth that these dumb people are superior to us. So there's a few of us, but we're trying to expand and get even you to become a real brother and stop telling this lie about Marxism and communism.
And wait a minute. Stop. Brother John. Real brother. Real brother. Are you saying I'm not a real brother?
Not yet. All right, you got to finish. You got to graduate.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess I have to earn my blackness.
You talk about the economic.
Go ahead, sir.
Disparity. Now, what Obama did. Now, the poorest people in the United States are people that are on welfare and food stamps.
Yes.
Now, from 1996 to 2007, there were 28 million people on food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
In 2013, there were 2.3 million adults on food stamps, and there were 2.2 million children on WIC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since Obama left office, his 2017 budget got another million people off of food stamps into the middle class. The problem that you guys don't understand, right, you Marxists, is that you want to focus on, you want to tell the lie to the poor people. And then if you could tell the lie to the poor people, then the racist white people that aren't poor will say, yeah, take all that money from the rich people and the middle class people and give it to the poor 87% of whites who make up those on welfare. That's the wrong strategy. Obama's strategy was, no, let's give the poor people an incentive to get off of food stamps. Let's give them $300 billion in tax cuts if they get a job and get into the middle class. Hey, let's give them a 50% discount on their health care if they get a job and sign up for Obamacare. So let's give them $2 gas prices so they can drive to work. So let's give them an incentive to get into the middle class. Let's lower the tax bracket so that if you get into the middle class, your taxes don't go up, your taxes go down. You get a tax cut. You get a $300 billion tax cut. And that's what Obama did. Now, why didn't the poor 87% of white people that make up those on welfare, why didn't they embrace that, get that tax cut, get that affordable health care? Why didn't they? Because Obama was black.
Okay, let me first qualify something.
Tell me why.
Okay, let me qualify a few things to you now, brother. I made you speak, and we always get into this contention. I made you speak. Now it's my time. All right, here we go. First of all, I gotta agree with you that in effect that is what the Affordable Care Act was designed to do: make healthcare affordable, and it did two things. It meant if you wanted to have a business, you could now go independent and have your own business, because now there's a way for you to get healthcare. And when it comes to giving tax incentives and so forth, look, all people like myself want self-sufficiency as best possible. There's absolutely no doubt about that. In the interim, however, we do not support policies that for folks who need help to get help irrespective of race. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Now, that said, look, I'll be factual and just say it this way. There are two ways to solve problems, right? There's you have your way up. You have your thought process. Your thought process is a lot of times, look, things are black and white in a lot of areas. If I'm a black man going down the street and a cop comes, my heart beats as fast as your heart does, because I know that by a 20 to 1 margin, I'm likely to get shot more than my white counterpart. Those are realities I know. I know all these, every black thing that you think I don't know, I do know. Now, that said, the approach to handle problems, however, are different. You're in your face. My approach is never to be in your face. My approach is to show otherwise. And you know what? I get results. So there. But brother, hold on a second, brother.
People that are racist know that you won't call them on their racism.
Oh no, look.
Get whites to
No. That's not true. That's not true, brother. I'm gonna put you on hold for a second so I can get to some question. But stay with me, because I like talking to you. All right, you're my buddy. Someday I'm going to change you as well. Anyway, let's go to the people here. To my listening audience, pays better than Walmart, doesn't it? Though, yeah, Bezos pays much better than Walmart, actually. Okay, Michael Rudin, less than 30% of the nations are diehard Republican or Democrat voters, while 40% are independent, who can shift the outcomes of any election by showing up and actually voting. 100%. In fact, I had a friend at Coffee Party who had a group that I don't remember what he called it, but in effect it was saying that most people don't vote, and that is a party that we should be addressing, the people that don't vote. 99 to 1, that is potentially a populist politics in a nation with rampant wealth inequality. Yes, I want populist policies, just not the type that we have from Donald Trump. My good friend Bruce Pollard, once more, my friend, into the breach. Yes, okay. I'm not sure what you mean with that, Bruce, but you got to tell me. Anyhow, Michael Rudin, I didn't get a notification again. Sorry, man. We are at the behest of Facebook. Greatest show on earth. Milton Gibson, thank you so kindly. And given that you think it's one of the good shows on earth, please go ahead and share it and tell your folks about it. And not only tell your folks about it, tell them to support the show. We need support for the show. And by the way, you can call in at 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. Share the show and help us tell folks, support shows like this, support rags that are out there telling you things that likely cannot be told by the mainstream media. Continuing, we have Milton Gibson. That's because he's in. Not, okay. Bush, I read my lips. No new taxes. LOL. Milton, you know what's so interesting? When Bush went against his word, that is when Bush earned my biggest respect. Because at that point, he knew he was likely to lose. Because once you go against the Republican mantra, doesn't matter how good you are in every other position, they're coming for you. And I knew they were going to come for George Herbert Walker Bush. And, you know, they did. But again, he did the moral thing to do. He had to do it. Based on the current economic model that we have, he had to do it. Now, I believe in a different economic model, but that's what we live in. That said, I had more respect for him then than for anybody at that. I mean, than from very few at that time. Okay, let's see who else we have here. We have, yes, thank you, Milton. It was Alzheimer's that Ronald Reagan had. I forgot what that was. And let's see, Egberto, I still want you to talk about Julian Assange. Okay, you know they cut, the Embassy of Ecuador cut Julian Assange's internet. Let me first be very, very honest. I was not a fan of Julian Assange, and it had little to do with him exposing things that needed to be exposed. But I think Julian, and this is just a personal opinion, and a lot of folks on the left tear me up for it, but I'll say it anyway. I don't think Julian Assange has the interests of the United States people in his. I mean, I don't think that he believes in the people of the United States and Americans, okay? I mean, he comes across and he wants to hit up the government, and he has all these other left-wingers in this country on his bandwagon to hit up the American government, right? I just have never felt that he cared about the American people. I thought it was always a thing about Julian Assange and what he's able to do to the big, bad America. And what I try to tell a lot of my lefties is that, yes, there's a big, bad America that we are trying to change. But ultimately speaking, we are the big, bad America. All of us, left, right, middle, everything. We are the big, bad America. And when it's time to stand up, you know, this is where you live. So that is just my contention. So when I talk about Julian Assange and him losing internet access, for me, it's neither one or the other. For some, it's one of the worst things that have occurred. If you want anything more specific, ask me and I'll be more than happy to answer, Michael. Okay, on an antiquated first pass, the post-elections need to be modernized. I agree. Nearly every other nation has some variation of ranked voting. We should have not only ranked voting, we should have ranked voting. We should have audit trails. We should have paper backup with audit trails so that every precinct, and it should be done on a per precinct basis. It don't have to be all crazy where people say, oh, but all of this can be corrupted. No. If it's done on the precinct level, every precinct is responsible for its votes. Every precinct is responsible for its paper ballots, its paper snippets, if you will. That's all we need. And then we'll have reproducible elections. And guess what? The mere fact that you have all of that will prevent people from cheating because they know likely we would know at the precinct level where the cheating has occurred. Seems like a waste of $25 billion doubling every decade for maintenance. Yes, but it's not only that, right? Given that we're going to be buying it with borrowed money, it's not only the maintenance cost, but it's about the interest on what we borrowed to build it. Rene Perpatua, I have read that more Mexicans are returning to their country than leaving. The last number I heard, Rene, was break even. It was the same amount of people coming over or the same amount of people leaving. That's what I heard. I don't have any new numbers to that, but you may have some better numbers than I do. And according to Michael Rudwin, you are correct, and he gave you the document that we were going to call Michael a resident fact checker, and not only a resident fact checker, but the one responsible for finding all the documents that justify anything anyone in the room says. Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, we have Chase K. Escamilla. More gun violence at YouTube campus. Yes, I'm watching it on CNN right now with the helicopters flying over. When will we learn? You have more guns, you have more of these incidents. Look, my solution is a solution that's not possible, but is one that I think we could work towards, and that is ultimately get rid of guns. But again, I say that the right wing will have me for lunch. Well, I just said it. Michael Rudin again, is the solution to illegal immigration to find companies that hire illegal immigrants sufficiently to offset the benefits of undercutting citizens' wages? Here is the deal. Yes, if I understand your question correctly, if employers are penalized for hiring undocumented people would not be in the base, and supply and demand, whether you're a capitalist, socialist, or whatever works, right? Supply and demand says, if I have a small supply of something and a lot of people want it, I don't have to take the least amount of money for it. And that's why I believe in things like having certain things as rights, certain things that can't follow the supply and demand methodology. Because ultimately the supply and demand methodology in certain instances can be immoral. But as far as employment is concerned, yes, my friend, I think it does matter. All right, let's see. I have former friend who is a Trumpite, but I was at his farm last week and he had a dozen Hispanic working for cash. Said he couldn't find anyone to help him, and these guys work hard. Supply side, I guess that's exactly what it is. Supply side. Supply side and when you talk about supply, it is just like Americans using drugs, right? We go out and we kill 10,000 Panamanians, and I know the book Wikipedia probably says 4,000, and the American says 1,000. My people say 10,000 people killed in Panama. You won't find their bodies because the places that the United States leveled were ghettos where you don't really know how many people live in these one tenement rooms. I know the exact area where it occurred. 10,000 Panamanians or so were killed by the testing of the stealth fighter and other tools. They test those things on people that don't really matter, right? Oh, those third world folks are just third world people, until I came to the United States, I guess I didn't really matter. And even here in the United States, I mattered that little less. But look, that's what it's like. Okay, let me continue because we're coming to the end of the show, and I want to give Real Brother a quick closer. Real Brother is going to come around sometime. So all of you that are listening to Real Brother, don't let Real Brother worry you. I want you to talk to Real Brother as well. Go to a show. Milton, gringos are not gonna work all day in the hot sun picking fruit and vegetables. I think Milton, you're from are you? I think you're American, but I think you grew up in my part of the world in Panama in the Canal Zone, if I remember correctly, right? If I'm wrong, just tell me. Anyway, Michael Rudden, Tom Hines, farm work is hard labor, very hard labor. Okay, let's go to, get to somebody that hasn't. Okay, Rene Perpetua said teachers are so underpaid and disrespected. I never understood it, expected as a strategy to dumb down the masses. You hit the nail on the head. I've always thought that. We put less interest in education. People are not as smart, and then you get the Trumps that come along with their fake news that make people very easy to convince. Rene, that is the answer. I have been preaching that for a long time. Check out some other shows on that. Rene Perpetua again. And DeVos is furthering the plan to privatize public education. There you go again. Again, remember what I said. Things that are of the commons, like education. Whenever you install profit at that point is not profit, it is an expense because it is monies going to the bucket of people who are doing nothing at the expense of additional monies that could be there to serve the children. Let's see. Real Brother can't shine Obama shoes. Real Brother, you heard that. Milton, my ex-wife. Oh, it's your ex-wife. Okay, my brother. Great. All right, we are coming to the end of the show. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Real Brother 1 minute to close out. Real Brother, I know I've been talkative today, but I had a lot to say. But I'm going to give you some time to speak for a minute. Talk for me, my brother.
Okay. Well, the first main thing is, as far as having a third party of Marxists who take away the vote from the Democrats and the people who don't want to destroy the country because it elected a black president, that would be stupid. The reason that they're a third party, the Marxists, is because they can't win among the two parties. Now, Putin installed Trump, and because Putin installed Trump, Bernie and Jill Stein, he was able to get Trump to win because of the 20% of stupid-ass white people and 10% of dumb black people who voted for that idiot Bernie Sanders. So you idiots, you Marxists who are calling for a third party are really just calling for Trump and the Marxists to become president for life. And that's stupid.
Okay, I'm going to leave it right there. I gave you your 60 seconds, my friend. You call tomorrow. We'll have another program tomorrow. But it was a pleasure talking to you as usual, real brother. I mean, you make things fun. Folks, we are coming to the end of the show right now. We're probably going to go over by a minute or two. Thank you so kindly for having been here. I know that I didn't spend as much time on the Republican versus Democrat and why the demise of the duopoly is likely here, but the piece done by Matt Taibbi from the studies done by Thomas Piketty is worth a read. I have a link to the story in the blog of the week. So please go ahead and go to Politics Done Right, pick up this show, click to the blog of the week, and then you can find that article. It's very important that you read it. I mean, I didn't have to go proselytize on any more on it than it was there. I think a lot of what I had to say today was a lot more important. Look, folks, I want you to remember to please go ahead and continue to share these shows. It is very important that you do so because there are a lot of things that we are going to cover here. Take as an example how schools are financed that we talked about today and how the tricks that these politicians play. We made you aware of it. We also try to let you know that why is it that students are not, the parents at this point in time need to be the one along the teachers in the streets because it is your most precious commodity that is being taken advantage of by the people you are voting in. They are putting your kids' life at risk. It's not only the things with the guns, but it's things with taxes. They are doing that. You don't hear a whole lot of that on your local news. And of course, we know what's happening with local news with Sinclair controlling a whole bunch of them altogether. And we tell you that in great detail. Now, before I close the show, I go with my normal ask again and ask you to please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Very important to support shows like this. We are the ones that are going to, not just Politics Done Right, but many other shows like this are on the internet now, and it is one of the only ways that we have to get a progressive message out consistently, not filtered through what we can say because we're concerned that our advertisers will no longer support us, which makes our station no longer viable. We can stay viable if you support these, and we ask for very little, not what these commercial stations ask for. We ask for very little to survive, so we ask you to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Look, it's been wonderful being with you. I'm going to tell you something. Going into political activism, what I call activist journalism, is not at all profitable as it was doing my software. But I tell you what's most important of it all. I love to do it because I feel there is a purpose. There's a purpose in making who we are better. It is a purpose for making this. When I was a kid, living back home in Panama, I remember everybody looking up at the United States as being that bastion of democracy. There's a lot that many of us come into this country never knew. We just knew those skyscrapers, and we just knew that it had everything, and we just knew that you could come over here and be whatever the hell you wanted to be. That's what we knew. I mean, you talk to anybody in Costa Rica, Panama, Venezuela, any one of those places, they'll tell you the same thing. They'll tell you the same thing. And we came over here. A lot of us came over here by choice and legally by choice and did very, very well. Some of us said it is time that we give back, because what has begun to happen is the United States turning into a lot of the places where we are from. The United States turning into deeper than a plutocracy. In Panama, we have the Rabiblancos controlling everything. 5% of the less than 5% of the population has always been in control, and they always looked a certain way. And here in America, we are seeing the transition of a populace that was getting intelligent as we got through the 60s and the 70s, and people started to liberalize, and people started to realize that, you know what? We can do better for the average person. We can unionize. We can make sure that parity, not parity, but worked for parity would occur. And then there was Ronald Reagan, who started this false thing about lifting yourself up from the bootstraps. And here's the reality, folks. Everybody lifts each other from the bootstraps. So anyhow, when we got over here, we were, those of us who came in the 70s and the 80s, have actually seen the change, the degradation of what America was into what it is becoming. And that is what we intend to break back. We want, a lot of these folks used to say, we want our country back. Yeah, we want our country back. We want it to be where it was heading and not where it is going today. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Please remember to go to patreon.com/Politics Done Right. You guys have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLI